to spend 3 hours of your day with us today. And just to let you know that we're going to start very soon in like 2 to 3 minutes from now. We're waiting for people to coming in from the waiting room right now. So please bear with us a few more minutes and we're going to start officially. Just so in the meantime, I'll let you know that please try to stay until the end of the session, which is like in a 3 hours time, because at the end, we're giving the link for you to download your certificate for participation in the chat box of the Zoom. All of you officially to the second quarterly informative webinar on the bringing living heritage to classroom in Asia Pacific. Thank you very much for joining us today. We have here our representatives from ICHCAP, the International Networking Center for Intangible Cultural Heritage in Asia Pacific, under the auspices of UNESCO, our DG, our Director General, Mr. Jisong Kim, and Dr. Feng Jing from the UNESCO Bangkok, the Chief of Culture Unit, here with us. So without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Jisong Kim, the Director General of ICHCAP, to give the welcoming speech, please. Please, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, all participants, dear friends, good morning or good afternoon. I'm in Rabat, Morocco, actually, for 17th Intergovernmental Committee for the 2003 Convention. So I joined here today to welcome you all this seminar of bringing living heritage to the classroom in Asia Pacific MOOC. I'm very pleased to meet over 200 participants gathered here with passion for ICH education. Collaborated with the UNESCO Bangkok office and APSEU, ICHCAP started the ICH education projects since 2018 and developed this MOOC. The 2003 Convention and the operational directives emphasize the importance of education for implementing the convention and achieving SDGs, particularly SDG 4, quality education. As a means, we thought that dissemination of sources through online will be more useful and it could maximize the results. This is the underline of the MOOC development. After opening the courses, we run the cohort tutorial sessions, face-to-face national workshop for teachers in Nepal and Kyrgyzstan recently. And these online seminars twice, including today's one focusing on Southeast Asia and Central Asia cases from the pilot classes to help participants understand these courses better and share information for inducing collective intelligence. Considering intangible cultural heritage keep changing the way of integration, ICH into education can be diverse and change in applying local context. From the previous online seminar, one of the comments remained in my memory. It seems the participant is a school teacher and his her point of comment was don't know well about ICH and the integration of ICH into curriculum or lesson plan was not the priority, but it can be integrated in different ways, and this work in everyday classroom is an imperative to safeguard ICH alive and thriving. I will conclude my words with Nelson Mandela quote: "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." Now it is time to ask your continuous interest and support to make this course more meaningful. Hope this quote and today's time hearten up your future works. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Kim. So next, I would like to invite Dr. Jing Feng from UNESCO Bangkok, Chief of Culture Unit, UNESCO Bangkok, to take the floor and give the thank you speech to the ICHCAP and everyone, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dear Director General of ICHCAP, Mr. Kim, teachers, culture and education experts, dear colleagues and friends, a very good day to you all. 안녕하세요. My name is Feng Jing, Chief of Culture Unit of UNESCO Bangkok. It is a great pleasure for me to join the second quaternary informative webinar for the online course Bringing Living Heritage to the Classroom in Asia Pacific. As Mr. Kim just mentioned, the 7th session of the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage is now taking place in Rabat, Morocco. And I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Asian state parties to the 2003 convention, such as Cambodia, China, and Vietnam, who have their intangible heritage elements inscribed on the representative list of ICH. This online course that you are taking or haven't completed already is a great product of years of hard work by the instructors, video makers, editors, and colleagues from 3 main partner institutions: UNESCO, ICHCAP, and APCEU. This webinar and the course are parts of a larger initiative that bridges 2 core topics of UNESCO: intangible cultural heritage or living heritage, and education. These 2 dimensions of our work are genuinely inseparable. I'm also very pleased to note that a large number of teachers and educators have taken the course on APCEU online campus, and many are here today at this webinar. Since all of you who are here have, to a certain extent, completed the online course, I can also tell you that the content of the course you just took also did not come out of thin air. It consolidates the experiences and the lessons learned from our project implementation, starting more than 10 years ago and more intensively over the last few years in the Asia Pacific region. The course also is aligned with the methodology that has been developed and used for decades at schools in Europe. This webinar, the online course, together with a resource kit that has recently been published on UNESCO's website, are responses to requests from teachers around the Asia Pacific region who have voiced the need for more guidance and tools about this living heritage and education approach in our 2019 survey and consultation. For the resource kit, it is now available in English and the Russian version, with many more language versions to be released in the next year. I believe that my UNESCO team has shared with you links to download the resource kit for free in several reminder emails that they send to all online course enrollers. I hope that you get to make full use of the materials in this kit in your actual work. Intangible cultural heritage is a vector for our identities. It conditions our way to understand our surrounding and to interact in our society. At the heart of ICH safeguarding is education, in particular through intergenerational transmission. Education for all and inclusive and equitable quality education are UNESCO's central educational goals and the pillars of the SDG Goal 4. The concept of quality education encompasses respect for local cultures and engagement with local communities. The goal recognizes that for education to be of high quality, it requires motivated students and teachers, locally relevant curricula, learner-centered methodology, and inclusive, accessible environments. As you are aware, Target 4.7 specifically calls for the appreciation of cultural diversity and of culture's contribution to sustainable development. Therefore, by integrating living culture and education, we can develop a lively and relevant way of teaching. Teachers are offered the opportunity to be creative and innovative in preparing their lesson plans. Lessons become more dynamic, easier for students to relate to, hence easier to understand, when they are enriched with anecdotes and expressions from the local cultures. At the same time, it also contributes to better awareness about the meaning and values of living heritage. So it inspires young generations to learn more about it, to practice it, and transmit it to future generations. You are here with us today because you believe in the power of bringing culture and education closer together. I hope that the course and this webinar will provide you with sufficient knowledge and skills to not only improve your classroom experience, but also inspire you to become our champions to advocate for this new approach and stay in touch with us every time you have something new to share. In this respect, I would like to thank our colleagues at ICHCAP for extended partnership with UNESCO Bangkok that makes this webinar possible. Thank you to all our three experts and everyone who has been involved in this initiative and get us where we are today. Thank you once again to all of you for your commitment to work with us, and wishing you a wonderful time in taking the courses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Feng. And so that wraps up for the welcoming sessions. And thank you very much, Mr. Kim, the Director General of ICHCAP, and Dr. Jing from UNESCO Bangkok Culture Unit. Without further ado, our next session is to introduce the core content of what many of you have already been taking, the online course. And for that, I would like to introduce two of our international experts, Vanessa Achilles and Camilla, and Miss Camilla Kensateva. My apology for my version. Just to give the floor first to Vanessa to introduce you to the core content, just to run you through again of what the course that you are taking. Some of you that have unstable audio, we have tried to fix from our side right now, and we do not see any problem from our studio. The connection from here seems to be quite strong and stable. So I would pledge that you check the internet connection. If the Wi-Fi connection is not stable, you can change to the mobile if you're using mobile phone. Otherwise, you can activate the transcription function and just see the transcription text as well. That will be another option. Another option is that you turn off your video and it will increase the stability of your internet, so the sound is clearer. So that's our advice from here, which is as much as we could do to solve the unfortunate internet problem. So without further ado, Vanessa, I would like to give you the floor right now. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone, depending on where you are. My name is Vanessa Angeles, and I have been working on this project for many years now, and I am very pleased to have the opportunity to discuss with you today for the next few hours our shared experience. So thank you very much for joining. Camila, would you like to say hello first?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm also excited to join this meeting as well. I'm from Kyrgyzstan and I was involved in the implementation of pilot project in Kyrgyzstan. So I will be happy to share with you today with some examples and experiences our teachers had and faced the challenges just to talk with you and reflect and see the examples or the ideas you have. So.
Thank you.
Vanessa?
So I am very pleased to be here with you. And first of all, I would like to thank all the partners from ICHCAP and APCU, and of course, all the UNESCO team who is behind the scene. It has been, as Mr. Jing mentioned, a result of a long process to be here. This webinar is actually coming after a pilot project that was started back in 2019 and even previous experience before that. The pilot project was conducted in 6 countries, in Cambodia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Korea, Nepal, and Thailand. And I would like to clarify, because there were some comments that you sent in your earlier question, all the examples that you can find in the online course or in the guide that has been published are real life examples. They are not made up. And Camila here will share with us several of these examples from her own experience today. And I assure you that everything has happened in reality. So as Mr. Jing mentioned, this online course is supplemented by many materials, many equipment. So I would recommend you to have a look at the guide, the teacher guide, and also all the other materials. We have cartoon videos that have been published a while ago and that give a very good introduction to the topic. Before we actually start the discussion of this project, I would like to launch a first quick poll. And I would like to ask you to which extent you have completed the online course. This webinar, so please click on the answer that correspond to your situation. I think it's quite useful for us to know at which level you are. I should mention that this webinar here is only a complement to the online course. It's not meant to replace it. So the reason why we are doing that is to give a space actually for you to ask questions and share information. The information that we will share today is only superficial compared to all the rich content that you will be able to find in the webinar. And I really encourage you, if you haven't done so, to watch the videos and take the quiz and do the different activities that will lead you step by step to produce your first lesson plan that will integrate ICH. So it's really not a repeat, it's really it's a complement. So I see that only a few people have answered so far. I encourage you to quickly click on the answer that corresponds to your situation. If you have watched the beginning of the course, or if you don't have time to complete it. Okay, it seems that no more answers are coming. So at least from the people who have answered, the respondents, it seems that a majority of you have completed the whole course. So it's really, really a good thing. Please, I encourage the others to do so. And
it
so
seems
that we
some
will.
people are answering into the chat box.
I see now that answers are coming in the chat box.
If you're answering into the chat box, you might want to click into the poll, but so the poll is also clickable. You can click onto the poll part, like, but in case you
Yeah.
don't see it in your mobile phone, if you're using mobile phone, then it might not show. You can also put it in the chat as well. We can read it out. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, but it seems that still a majority of you have completed the course, which is very good. And otherwise, I encourage you to do so. So let me answer a few of the first questions that are coming already by giving you a brief overview of some practical aspect regarding this course. If you're here, you probably know that this MOOC course is accessible on the GCED online campus. It is available now. It was available until the end of the year, and the availability, I think, has just been confirmed to be extended for another couple of years. At least that's the plan. I think it is already in the system. So you have time to look at the materials and look at them again, watch the videos again, or download some of the materials if you want. There will be a certificate for completion of the MOOC. This one is automatically issued by the GCED online campus after you have completed the online course, which means that you have to watch the videos and answer the quiz at the end of each module. And once you have done that, the GCED online platform automatically send you the certificate. We do not have access to this backend. It's automatically generated. If you have a technical issue, you can contact us, but I mean, only GCED online campus team can help you. And I think there is an address in the website where you can ask if you have a technical problem. Then there will be a certificate of attendance for this webinar, which is delivered by UNESCO Bangkok. And as Elke mentioned already, Montakan mentioned already, you will find the link in the chat at the end of this webinar. And then there is a certificate of achievement that is delivered by UNESCO Bangkok, if you wish so, and if you submit a lesson plan that is following the 6 steps. If you submit this to us, there is a link in the GCED online platform where you can upload that your lesson plan, your work. The deadline for submission is 31st December 2022, this year, end of the year. I am starting to review some of the lesson plan that have been received. Apologies for those who have submitted a long time ago. We are just starting this review process, and it should be completed in January after we have received all the lesson plan in December. I would like to clarify that to submit this, you can choose to submit it with the UNESCO template. You will have a workbook. You can fill in the workbook and upload that if you wish so, but you're totally welcome to use your own lesson plan templates, the one that is used in your school. So feel free to do what would work best for you. Are there any questions about that before we move on?
I have a question, ma'am.
Yes.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm from the Philippines. I would like to ask, ma'am, because I have enrolled in the GCED online course, and then
Yes.
I am already 97% complete. I'm just pending with the lesson plan format. So the lesson plan that we'll be submitting in the GCED online campus, ma'am, will be the same lesson plan we'll be submitting to UNESCO.
Yeah, it's the same lesson plan. Yes, you're producing one lesson plan that is submitted through the GCED online platform, and it is going to UNESCO Bangkok and reviewed through this process. So it's only one.
Right.
You don't need to submit in 2 places. You just submit like when you're in the platform. AppCU and GCED Online Campus are our partner. So when you are in the platform, you have a link, submit here, and it goes directly into a folder, and from there to accessible by UNESCO Bangkok for the feedback.
All right. Last, ma'am, because thank you so much for that, ma'am. My last question is, for example, ma'am, every module in the GCED Online Campus, they have this worksheet. Are we going to submit those worksheets? Because in the course there is no location to submit it.
As I mentioned, the worksheet is a guide. It helps you go through the different steps, but at the end you can either submit the worksheet if you want, or you can submit your lesson plan in your own format, the format that is used in your school.
Oh, I see.
One or the other. You don't, like, if you have a lesson plan template in your school, use that because it's easier for you to use afterwards. If you don't have a standard lesson plan template, then you can use the worksheet, which will guide you through the
I
process.
see.
Okay?
Okay. Thank you so
All
much,
right.
ma'am. God bless.
You're welcome. Thank you. I hope it's helpful. Okay, so let's move on. Unless there are any other questions. No? So, what is the living heritage and why is it important for schools and for teaching and learning for the students? So, this will give me the opportunity to launch a second poll as soon as I can find it again. So, poll 2. So, according to you and according to what you have understood in, could I please ask participants to mute their microphone, please? Thank you very much. You're welcome to take the floor and ask questions, but otherwise it makes a lot of noise if you're not muted. So this poll is, why is intangible also called living heritage? So I give you a few minutes to try to answer that. It's quite important to understand the basis of our work. And there can be several applicable answers.
Vanessa, while
Yes.
participants are answering, we have
Yes.
a question in the chat box.
Yes.
We can use any type of living heritage, right? It doesn't have to be a dance or religion practice.
Absolutely, yes, of course. The module gives you many examples of living heritage. If you look at the guides, you will see also that there are many resources referring to different types of living heritage. And living heritage can cover many different aspects. It can be an oral tradition. It can be some knowledge, local knowledge about nature or about your understanding of the universe. It can be dance. It can be knowledge about craftsmanship. It can be a social practice, a rituals, a carnival. There are many examples are presented in the MOOC. And you are welcome to use any form of living heritage that you identify as part of your identity or the identity of your students. So we see that it's quite interesting, actually. So let me end the poll now. I think we have a majority of people who have answered. That many people have answered answer C because it evolves through time. And this is a very important concept. I want to highlight that because sometimes we tend to see that there is ICH, like we see this is the authentic ICH and that's how we have to do things. And in fact, living heritage can evolve as long as the community is decides to make it evolve to fit their need, to fit the context. So the practices are not frozen in time. They have changed. The dances have changed, the craft traditions have changed, the rituals may have changed through time, and this is perfectly fine. So it's living, it's changing depending on the context and the people. Then I see that a large number of people have answered because it includes the practice of living human beings. This is true that living heritage is practiced by living human being. However, this is not because we live that we are calling it living heritage. it's because the heritage lives with us and through us. So there is a reality, it is practiced by that, but that is not the reason why it is called living heritage. A few people have answered because if it is not practiced, it disappears. And this is very correct and very important. If we don't practice living heritage, it dies, and the practices are forgotten. And this is why the convention, the 2003 convention that is now promoted by UNESCO, is actually putting safeguarding at the heart of that, to make sure that the living heritage can continue, can be passed on and transmitted from generation to generation. And this is a very important concept. And that's why we are doing this kind of project, because through education, education becomes also a way of transmission, so a way of keeping the practice alive or interesting, and because it will help people keep being interested in that, and the tradition may not disappear. It can still disappear if it's irrelevant for the community. The community will decide. But at the heart of the convention and at the heart of our work is the idea of safeguarding. So I would like to ask if you're all comfortable with these concepts, or if there are comments that are coming.
If you understand and is comfortable with, if you are comfortable with the concept, you can also use the icon, like this, give us a heart or a clap or anything, as well as a way to respond. If, oh, we got a lot of heart. Oh, hearts coming
That's
out.
good.
And thumbs
We
up.
are very
Okay.
happy.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So these.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So on this slide, yes, you can see that there are many different ways of living heritage, many different types of practices, and that it is dynamic and changing over time. But I really highlight the role of communities. And when we talk about communities, we talk about a very wide group of people. Anyone who practice or feel connected to a specific practice is part of this community. And these community members, they feel that the heritage is part of their identity. That's one reason why they may want to transmit their living heritage to younger generation. And community are important because they are the one who will decide if and how this living heritage practice should be safeguarded, and how it should be safeguarded, and if it can evolve. The module also highlights the importance of sustainable development. ICH contributes to several aspects of sustainable development and to several of the SDG goals. And we really see that teaching with ICH is complementary to, for instance, a global citizenship education approach. For instance, there are many ways, but for instance, because teaching with ICH allows us to look at one element in various disciplines from various angles, and therefore different perspectives, which are important to open the mind and the reflection according to GCED principle. And it also allows us to compare, for instance, practices from multiple communities. So you can see the interconnection, appreciate and respect the others. Therefore, you have this exchange and this global dimension that appears, even though the practice are local. Bringing living heritage to school has a lot of benefits for students, teachers, the community, and its heritage. We have seen many examples in the modules, and we will see one here. But I would like to, so that's why we are actually engaging in this process. I would like to highlight once more the importance of teaching about living heritage and teaching with living heritage. Teaching about is when ICH or living heritage are the subject of instruction. So you will learn a dance, you will learn a craft, you will learn a music, a song, You may learn its origin and its meaning. You may try to practice it. And usually many schools already include this kind of courses, either through the curriculum or through clubs and extracurricular activities. But then there is a more innovative approach, which is teaching with ICH, where ICH, the living heritage, becomes a pedagogic tool, and it can be applied to any curriculum subjects, any types of school activities, and it's here to enrich the teaching and learning process, to make the lesson more exciting, more interesting, and more contextualized, more practical also, because the students will do hands-on activities. So this is what we are really trying to promote, because it's the innovative aspect of it. So I hand the floor to Camelia, who will give us an example of teaching about and with living heritage.
So here I just wanted to share with you the experience of the teacher from Kyrgyzstan. This lesson was organized to teach about traditional dice games. I mean, like using traditional dice games to teach the math subject at school. This lesson was organized in a primary school kids. The main topic, the initial topic of the lesson was the multiplication and division. So the aim of the teacher was to use ICH as an entry point and to attract the students' attention and to make the lesson more engaging and fun for them. So she decided to use the dice games, which are quite popular in Kyrgyzstan, and many kids usually are familiar with this game and they play it during when they are at home, when they have free time. So what she did to attract the students' attention, she brought a bag, which you see on the screen, and we call it kurjun. This is traditional bag, which is made by using pillet weaving technique. And usually we store dices in such kind of bags. So to attract the students' attention at the beginning of the lesson, she showed the bag to the students and asked them think about this bag, whether they have seen already this bag at their houses, or they are familiar, or maybe they know how these bags are made actually. So after that, the teacher continued the regular lesson, checking the homeworks with students, answering the questions on the previous topic, and etc. After this exercise, the teacher took the bag again, and she listened to the answers of the teachers, of the students about the bag, what they know about it, whether have they seen it or not. So maybe they know how it's made or called, or anything they know about this bag. After this, she explained about this bag, and she took out the dices which were inside the bag, and she explained how this dices, how it's made, why it's painted, which colors use it, and which traditional games we usually play using these dices. Maybe if the students know which types of I don't know, different types of traditional games which are played using these dices, so they also share their thoughts, their experience, what they know. And then the teacher explains about one of these dice games called Chukro Atmai, which is very popular among kids, especially among boys in Kyrgyzstan. So after this, the teacher used dices to explain the topic of the lesson. She asked 5 students to volunteer, and then she said, like, for instance, look, I have 20 dices in my bag, and I'm giving each of you 4 dices. So how many dices left in my bag? So the students start learning to multiplicate and divide. By using the dices, the teacher was trying to teach the students how to multiply and divide. After this, after the explanation of the topic of the lesson, she divided the students into 2 groups and gave them 2 exercises to do. So they were using the dices to do the exercises from the math book to complete. After the the completion of the exercises from the math book. The students stayed in those two teams, two groups. They were working on their exercises and continued by playing the game Chuko Atmai, which was presented by the teacher at the beginning of the lesson. And they move to the practical part of the lesson when they are practicing the ICH, namely the traditional game. Could you please move to the second slide? Yeah, here we see how the kids are playing. This is actually not during the lesson. This is the picture. The picture was taken after the lesson when their students were playing the game in the school hall after the lesson. So they got excited and they wanted to continue. So what the teacher did at the end of the lesson, the students stayed in two groups and they tried to play Chuko Atmai in the classroom by dividing into two groups. This game actually, how it's played, there is usually a circle, which is like 3-5 meters of diameter, and then they also draw a short line, which is 1 meter away. So it can be played individually or it can be played by teams. The teacher decided to to use two groups as two teams. So the main goal of the game is to shut out as many dice as you can out of the line which is drawn on the floor. So the team which has shut out the most number of dice wins actually. So this was the lesson with the intangible cultural heritage, which we were trying to introduce into the math lesson. So the students learned the main topic of the subject, which is how to multiply, divide, and they also learned about the traditional games, the Kyrgyz traditional dice games. They acquired new skills and learn to play game if they were not familiar with this game yet, or they had fun with their classmates during practicing the game. And the teacher's goal was actually to explain to students that the math is used in a daily life, and even in games math is used, and it's very useful tool and make the lesson more fun and engaging, that it's not only about numbers and calculating something, but it can be really fun and enjoying to learn the math actually. So I think by this lesson, the teacher managed to reach the lesson goals and to promote the intangible cultural heritage. And since this game is quite popular among kids, I think it was more fun for them. And reading and reviewing the feedbacks of students which participated in this lesson, it was really fun to read their comments, because they were saying I didn't know that the math lesson can be so interesting, and that the dice games can be used to teach math lesson. Actually, I didn't know that it's possible to learn about math playing dice games. So I hope this gives you some examples on how you can organize your lessons using such kind of games if you have in your country as an option. So if to talk about some benefits, actually we have faced many benefits from implementing the pilot classes in Kyrgyzstan. For instance, connecting school and home, like when our students were doing their research projects, they were asking their parents and grandparents to help and to explain about certain practice or ICH element or any craft they know to perform to complete their ICH projects and to present it at school. It also helps to contextualize more fun and hands-on if you invite the ICH bearers to participate in the lesson. and more engaging, as you have seen from the this example about with the traditional dice games. Like, it was fun for students, and it was a we had the educational goals reached, and the practical part as well. So it can be like develop the sense of identity for the students when if they are familiar with the ICH element you have chosen for the topic, and they can share about this practice. For instance, if they have experience in this, or they know how to make this or that craft, I don't know. So there are many benefits we had, and I hope if you have already applied this process, or you are in the beginning of your journey to teaching and learning with ICH, we will be very happy to hear your experiences or examples you have, or any ideas you are thinking to use this approach. So if you want to share, we are like happy to listen to your voices.
Thank you, Camilla. So if you would like to share, like, we will have discussion sessions after this as well, and which everybody can just jump in and share your experience of teaching or using such techniques at your schools as well. Vanessa?
Yes, maybe if there are no immediate reactions, maybe we can watch another example from Korea, which is quite interesting, and then that will allow us to understand different context and different type of activities.
수업했던 곳은 용인의 신갈초등학교인데, 수업을 설명하기 전 이곳의 지리적 환경에 대해 약간의 언급이 필요할 것 같습니다. 학교가 위치한 곳은 구도심이고 신도심과의 환경 차이를 갖고 있으며 다양한 경제적 층위의 가정이 위치한 곳입니다. 학생들 역시 환경에 따라서 사용하는 언어, 활용할 수 있는 디지털 기기, 생활 환경에서 차이를 보이고 있으며 이는 학생들의 배경지시에 많은 영향을 주고 있습니다. 수업 후에 참고로 학생들은 이 수업을 대단히 흥미로워했고 카메라로 수업을 촬영하는 동안 긴장해서 보다 활발히 발표하지 못했다는 이야기들을 많이 했습니다. 수업 촬영이 끝난 후에도 교사에게 자신의 의견을 다양한 글로 써서 보여주는 학생들도 있었습니다. 또한 남사학놀이와 같은 과거의 문화에 관심을 보이면서 관련 역사에 대한 정보를 찾아보는 학생도 있었습니다. 무엇보다 인권 신장을 위한 노력은 누구나 할 수 있고 참여하는 만큼의 발전할 수 있다는 생각을 미약하게나마 이해한 것 같아 수업의 보람을 느꼈습니다. 앞서 말했듯이 우리나라는 현장에서 국가가 발행하는 국정교과서가 현재도 어느 정도의 권위를 갖고 있습니다. 제가 수업한 과목은 사회이며 이 과목의 교과서는 여전히 국가에서 발행합니다. 때문에 저 역시 국정교과서로 수업을 했습니다. 물론 국정교과서는 많은 전문가들이 노력해서 만들기 때문에 신뢰도가 매우 높은 교재이긴 하지만 한국의 모든 학생들이 같은 내용을 같은 방법으로 배울 필요는 없다고 생각하며 내용의 폭과 깊이, 이 방법은 학습자의 수준에 따라 언제든 적절히 변화해야 하며 이것이 교사가 할 역할이라고 생각합니다. 제가 실행하는 수업의 성취 기준은 인권의 중요성 인식과 발전 과정을 통해 인권 보호를 위한 태도를 내면화하는 것입니다. 정확한 표현을 빌리자면 인권의 중요성을 인식하고 인권 신장을 위해 노력했던 옛사람들의 활동을 탐구한다라는 것과 생활 속에서 인권 보장이 필요한 사례를 탐구하여 인권의 중요성을 인식하고 인권 보호를 실천하는 태도를 기른다입니다. 저는 이 부분을 교과서를 통해 수업하려는데 교과서에는 고전문학의 한 부분과 과거의 사례, 그리고 인권 분야 위인들의 업적을 중심으로 설명을 했습니다. 이것은 나름대로 효율적인 방법이긴 하지만 학생들에게 인권의 발전이 몇 명의 중요한 사람들에게 발전된 것이라는 인상을 줄 수 있을지도 모른다는 그런 걱정을 하게 됐습니다. 또한 옛사람들이 신분사회를 살아가며 느꼈던 불합리함이 어느 순간 그 사회 전반의 여론이 되어 나타나는 과정, 그 자체가 인권의 개념 발달이라는 것을 학생들이 생각할 수 있도록 수업을 하고 싶었습니다. 그러나 앞서 말했듯이 너무 어려울 경우 수업 자체를 받아들이지 못하고 그런 학생들이 이제 있을 수 있기 때문에 추상적인 개념 학습은 학생들의 주의 집중을 또 길게 가져가기 힘들기 때문에 차시를 나누고 프로젝트를 구성하는 방법으로 접근했습니다. 다만 학생들의 흥미를 유지시킬 만한 수업 소재를 생각하는 일이 가장 힘들었는데 다행히 유네스코와의 협업을 하며 소개받은 많은 무형문화유산 자료를 접하고 수업 소재에 대한 생각을 확장할 수 있었습니다. 학생들의 흥미를 유지하면서 1년의 교육 경험을 학생들에게 제공했다는 점이 가장 좋았습니다. 흥미 중심의 신체활동, 표현활동을 실시하고 이를 바탕으로 무형유산에 담겨있는 생각들을 알아보고 그리고 이를 학생들이 살아가는 현대 학생 생활에 적용해보는 과정 모두 교사와 학생에게 흥미로웠습니다. 또한 무형유산 속에 담긴 의미를 알아보기 위해 학생들이 친숙한 소재에서 의미를 찾는 작업을 해보고 이를 무형유산 속에 적용해보는 탐구 방법 역시 흥미로웠습니다. 현대가요 속에서 사회 비판의 요소를 찾고 과거의 가수들인 남사당패의 공연 대본에서 당시 사회 비판적 요소를 찾아봤던 작업은 학생들에게 사회와 문화에 대한 다른 시각을 제공했다는 점에서 좋은 시도였다고 생각합니다. 학교에서 무형유산을 활용하면서 교육을 하면 좋은 장점은 아무래도 가장 큰 장점은 수업 소재와 기회의 확장이라고 생각합니다. 저는 무형유산 자체가 해당 지역 거주민들의 경험과 생활 양식 등 문화 그 자체를 압축하고 축적해 놓은 거라고 생각합니다. 때문에 인류와 환경에 대한 적응, 공동체 형성과 지속을 위한 노력, 그리고 지역의 문제 해결 방식 등 다양한 면을 보여주는 좋은 사례이고 이는 곧 교육과도 밀접한 관련이 있는 주제라고 생각합니다. 또한 무형유산을 활용해서 학습자를 중심으로 지역, 국가, 세계 등 공간을 확장해 나가는 수업 혹은 현재의 문화유산을 바탕으로 과거의 문화를 알아보고 탐색해보는 수업 그리고 미래의 문화 변화를 예측하는 등 시간을 확장하는 수업 등도 생각해 볼 수 있을 거라고 생각합니다. 무형유산을 이용한 수업의 가장 큰 단점은 교사가 갖고 있는 정보가 매우 적다는 것입니다. 정보가 적기 때문에 수업 적용을 위한 방법을 찾기가 어렵습니다. 교육의 효율성을 생각한다면 교육과정이 향하는 목표를 달성하기 위해서 각 학년, 학급의 특정한 흐름 혹은 수업 안에서 무형유산과 같은 특정 주제를 적용할 수 있습니다. 물론 학생들에게 일회성 수업 소재로 무형유산을 소개하는 것도 의미가 있지만 지금까지의 경험을 볼 때 그런 방법은 학생들에게 큰 의미를 주지 못하는 경우가 많았습니다. 때문에 무형유산에 대한 양질의 정보가 제공되는 채널이 꼭 필요하다고 생각합니다. 그리고 저의 경우 이런 정보의 문제는 센터 측에서 연결해준 각 분야의 전문가들로부터 제공받았습니다. 만약 이런 정보의 제공이 없었다면 수업이 매우 빈곤한 수업이 되었을 거라고 생각합니다. 가능한 보다 많은 시도를 해보려고 생각하고 있습니다. 앞서 얘기한 대로 무형문화유산은 저의 수업을 풍부하게 만들고 학생들에게 더 흥미롭고 재미있는 수업 주제와 소재들을 제공할 수 있기 때문입니다. 저는 무엇보다 먼저 학생들의 생활 환경과 연관지어 생각하길 권해보고 싶습니다. 학습자를 중심으로 어떤 무형유산이 있는지 그리고 그 무형유산들은 어떻게 전승 혹은 구성돼서 온 것인지를 생각해 본다면 어렵지 않게 교육과정 또는 단위 수업과의 접점을 찾을 수 있을 거라고 생각합니다. 또한 온라인에서 보다 많은 정보를 찾을 수 있도록 노력하길 권해봅니다. 예전에는 논문 한 편을 읽기 위해서 소장하고 있는 도서관은 정말로 가야 했지만 지금은 온라인에서 엄청난 양의 정보를 습득할 수 있는 좋은 자료 제공처를 찾을 수 있을 겁니다. 각 분야의 전문가들이 제공한 정보도 온라인에서 찾아볼 수 있습니다. 매우 좋은 곳이죠. 마지막으로 교육과정이 추구하는 목표를 정확히 하고 이를 위해 수업에 대한 대략적인 세부 목표를 정한 후에 적용 가능한 문화유산 사례를 탐색해 볼 것을 권합니다. 물론 반대로 무형유산을 먼저 살펴보고 학생들에게 소개하거나 교육하고 싶은 주제를 발견했다면 이를 적용할 교육과정을 탐색하거나 새로 계획하여 만드는 건 역시 좋다고 생각합니다.
Yeah, so I hope that you found these two examples interesting. Let me take this opportunity now to open the floor to you and to ask you, first of all, if any of you have questions about the first module, about the concept of living heritage and about this idea of teaching with or teaching about living heritage. And maybe some of you can explain us why you are here, and because I assume you expect to find benefits in that. So why would be the most important benefits? What is your objective through this program? Anyone who would like to take the floor?
I actually got a message from Lena, who would like to share an art class with ICH, and she's wondering when she could do so. Lena, are you ready to speak?
Yeah, I was thinking that as the class has taken place already, maybe we can do that in the next part when we talk about the steps.
Sure.
Yes, so we will do that then. But
so Lena, please hold on for a moment. So sorry.
I will give you the floor. No worries. We don't forget you. Thank you for being proactive. But at this stage, I would like some of you to mostly tell us why you're here, why you think it's important, what benefits do you foresee?
Anybody would like to take the floor and answer the question?
Or ask your own question if you
may
have
I
some.
talk? Hello.
Hello.
Yes, so,
Mr. Nilay Ray. Is that you?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Nilay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Please speak.
Hello.
Hello, please speak. We can hear you now.
Okay.
You're muted again, Mr. Nilay. You have to click on the same button again.
Yes, Mr. Nilay, you have the floor, so you can just unmute your microphone and start speaking. Now you're unmuted. You can speak. We should be able to hear you. Now you're muted again.
I think Mr. Nilay has.
Yes.
Okay, please.
Now we hear you. Just speak.
Just a few lines. I'm sharing with you this type of initiative from UNESCO and other organization associated with UNESCO. The ICH, I think this type of initiative, when being a teacher.
You're muted again, Mr. Ray. We don't hear you, Mr. Ray. Mr. Nilay Ray? Okay, well,
Mr. Nilay, since your connection seems to be unstable, if I could ask you to type your comments into the chat box, it will be very good. Thank you very much. I'm so sorry for such problem. Is there anybody else who would like to comment or answer to Vanessa's question? Oh, yes, Miss Arya, please turn on your mic. Thank you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shubhangi and I'm from India. Thank you so much for giving me chance to speak, everyone. I have completed this course in the first semester and I found it, very useful because, for the living heritage, it's very important, that our heritage is dying, especially for the dying heritage and dying living arts. It's very important to convey the message and convey the information to the students.
Yes,
this is what I felt.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Yes, I think it's a very good opportunity to actually raise awareness that this heritage is important. And this is one of the benefits we have seen, is that because, like, for instance, you use dice in mathematics, the dice make mathematics interesting, but the mathematics also show that dice can be useful in a way. And you show that your living heritage becomes relevant and you're more interested into learning it and safeguarding it. So thank you for your testimony. So
Thank you very much.
I see a question here.
Oh, yeah, in the chat box, Miss Mirasol Gabarand also said, I think it's because she has some audio problem. Living in the city, integrating ICH in our lessons is one way to remind the students and become aware of the different cultural heritage we have. With this, they can appreciate and show respect with what we have in the past. Thank you very much, Ms. Gabarand. And Ms. Annalene Beck also said that attending the session will help gain more knowledge and skills on how to integrate ICH to my student, inculcating the importance of our Filipino heritage to our young learners will help them appreciate our culture and tradition more. Thank you very much, Annalene. We also have two more, Vanessa. From Diana. The lesson we will submit. Okay, this is a question. Just one moment. I am going to just read the testimony first. Mr. Gal Alburno, I am here to strengthen my knowledge and skills on living heritage integration in the classroom, which is a great vehicle in preserving cultural heritage. And Ms. Sasa Willaris, this initiative of UNESCO is really a great help for us teachers to really help preserving ICH in our localities, also raise awareness to protecting to protect and promote it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all the comments and testimonies, and this really aligns with our objectives and our interests, so we are very happy about that. I take this opportunity to react on our participant who was talking about living in the city. It's like cities are very interesting environment. We had some comments in the past about if you're in the city, you don't have living heritage because people have moved. I would have to say that I disagree with that, because usually people move in and bring in their traditions, and this tradition may evolve because, of course, you don't have the same lifestyle in the city and in the countryside. But a lot of the traditions, a lot of the practice, a lot of the beliefs may remain, and it's also a place where people will meet and will have a chance to exchange, and if they have different practices, they can learn to know each other better and understand each other better. And of course there are practices that can be celebrated, like a New Year celebration can be celebrated in the city as well as in the countryside. It may not be exactly the same way, but you celebrate New Year's, you celebrate birthdays, you have a lot of rituals, all the steps that mark someone's life take place. People have beliefs, they have knowledge, and this can be applied anywhere, whether you're in the city or in the countryside. So
thank you, Vanessa. We just have two more. Thank you. Just going to read through, because just to acknowledge a lot of contribution as well. Mr. Jose Celso Perez, integrating ICH very much supports the contextualization practices encouraged by the Department of Education in the Philippines. This helps students see their lessons to be more realistic and relevant to the immediate context.
We totally agree.
Yes, totally. And Mr. Christopher Belerza, say thank you so much for this opportunity, and my students really enjoy our lesson, especially the integration of ICH in my social study classes.
Glad to hear. I hope you can share with us in the next part of the meeting about that.
And Ms. Marites Cabana, in this contemporary era, it is timely to refresh us or retooling us teachers in the significance of living heritage.
Very good.
So
yes. We are very happy that all this is really aligning with our objectives. And so I think, oh, I see a comment also about cities. Yes, ICH in the city can be more diverse and can be very lively too. So let's not think that because we are in a modern space, we don't have practices, beliefs, and identities. We do. Sometimes we do not realize it ourselves, but we do. So it's important that we move into our first step, which is understanding our context. This is a very good, actually, stepping stone for that. So let me share my screen. Okay, I believe you see it now. It's coming full screen.
It is, yes.
It is now full screen.
Yes.
Yes, so the major part of the online course presented this methodology with different steps to create your own lesson plan. So first of all, I want to say that this is one methodology. It's not the only one. You could do things differently. We are proposing these steps as one guide, one way to guide your process. It is one perspective. It's not the only one. It has flexibility. But we want to keep in mind that we have these two objectives through this type of program and this type of approach, is that we hope our lessons and activities will contribute to safeguarding ICH, to contribute to raising awareness and helping us transmit the living heritage that exists around us, ours and that of our students and communities and others. And this is very much the work of UNESCO in the culture aspect, in the culture sector. And then very much of importance for another area of UNESCO, which is the education part. We are hoping to provide education of high quality and relevance to the learner. And if it is relevant, chances are that the quality will be better, the students' learning will be improved. So we are trying to find the intersection of these two very important objectives. And for this, we have proposed these 6 steps. They are presented in a certain order. But again, you can adjust to your needs and context. But we recommend that this allows a certain progression in the reflection, and it's a good starting point. So the first step is how to understand your context. So let me very briefly try to launch, or maybe LK, if you have access, because it's a little difficult with Zoom. Would you be able to launch the third
I am
poll?
going to do that for you.
That would be very nice.
Poll number 3.
Poll number 3, yes, which is why. Why did we choose to select this, the first step of the methodology, as understanding the local context? What is the reason for that? Which is a little bit explained in the MOOC, at least from our perspective. So let's wait a few seconds, just click on the answer, or if you cannot find the poll or if it doesn't work on your device, you can also enter your answer in the chat. But let's wait until we have at least half the participants answered. It's going fast. So do you think that it will help you understand what you can do with whom, where, when? That it will help you evaluate the lesson outcomes better, or it will help you start designing a lesson plan? So we ask you to select the most appropriate answer, because here you can only select one. Okay, so the answers keep flowing, but I think we will now end the poll. And The majority of you are actually answer, hey, it will help you understand what you can do with whom, where, and when. And this is actually what we are trying to convey through this first module. To a certain extent, yes, it will help you start designing a lesson plan and it will help you evaluate the lesson outcomes better, but it's to a minor extent because the first step is much broader, is really trying to understand what living heritage exists around you and how it could be used. The lesson plan step will come a little later. And starting from step 2, you start thinking about a specific lesson. In this first part, we are really focusing on the broad context. And I would like to really highlight a little bit that there is a lot of living heritage present around us, and we can choose from this broad variety. That's why one of the reasons why we think it is an important resource. Because it's widely available and everyone will have some practices, everyone will have some beliefs and some knowledge that can be turned into some content and learning content. And so the living heritage that we select for this aspect, for these lessons and this approach, it can be from the students or the communities around the school. It can be your heritage or your own living heritage or that of your colleague, because then you will have direct resource person around you, your students, their families, yourself, your colleagues. You will have this knowledge that helps you build up information and really pass on the meaning, which is quite important. But sometimes it's easier to look at living heritage that has been more formally documented. You may prefer doing that. And you have a lot of resources that exist through local and national inventories. On the UNESCO platform, you will find a lot of information. In the MOOC, we are talking about this tool called Dive into ICH, where you can see many of the listed elements. And you can learn about that by themes and objectives, social development goals, etc. You may have lots of research institutes, museums, associations who have some knowledge about that and who have documented the living heritage. And from this documentation, then you can start building up content. I would strongly encourage that to one way or another, you try to engage the students as much as possible in identifying this process, because then you will find elements that they are familiar with or that they are interested in. And from this interest will stem interest into the broader lesson. But of course, communities can approach you and suggest some elements, or you may bring your own, and then you will be motivated. You will have your own motivation. It's quite, this approach is very flexible and it can be applied to any type of curricular or extracurricular activities. We tend to encourage teachers to go through curricular integration because of the sustainability of it. If you have identified a lesson and develop a lesson that fit directly into your curriculum, you can roll it out every year. But if because of exams or evaluation standard, it's too complicated, you can start with extracurricular activities or school projects, which are more on a time basis, and you can test run that and see how it works. So we would always encourage you to start small to get the gist of it and then expand, and to do not hesitate to work with your colleagues, with the parents and the communities around you, because all these groups of people will bring the real life aspect of the living heritage. So I think we can skip this poll question. I would like to really highlight the importance of working with partners, as I mentioned. This will give richness, whether you're talking about partners in the communities, partners at the school, institutional partners. It's really exciting to see the relationship that can develop between the partners and between the communities and the teachers, for instance. Sometimes the starting point is a little difficult. It's difficult to find a partner in the community. There may be reluctance, there may be time constraints or practical constraints. But once this relationship has been established, it can be very, very enriching. And I would really encourage you to try this approach. But of course, it's very important to keep in mind all the ethical approach, which is a little bit developed later in another module. So, Camelia, would you like to tell us about working with institutional partners?
So when planning the project, we were thinking about engaging as much partners as we can in order to make our work process easier, because we remember the spirit of teamwork. When we have more people, the more work and much more sufficient things we can do and much more effectively. So when the teachers were preparing their lessons and conducting them, they were trying to involve various stakeholders. For instance, from the cultural institutions, we had the representatives of the Saimalu Tash Art Gallery, which makes traditional carpets using the quilting technique. So they were helping by providing the information about the craft they make and helping the teachers to organize the practical part of the lesson. So we had representatives from the federations which were involved in the school activities, and the representatives of the federation agreed to come to the school and to share their experience and to hold some master classes for students and for the teachers. How we managed to find how we managed to connect the federation. So how it happened, the teachers just shared their idea of making a lesson or creating an activity in the school, link it with the living heritage or about the living heritage. And during this teacher-to-teacher discussions, they realized that one of the teachers is actually the member of the local traditional games federation, which is called Salburun Federation. And she said that she can ask her colleagues from the federation to come and join the event and to hold some master classes for children and to volunteer this day to help the students to learn more about our traditional games. So during these small discussions among the teachers, they realized that there is an opportunity to cooperate with the federation members. The same for the cultural institution. The teacher wanted to organize the lesson about quilting technique, traditional quilting technique. So she turned to the local art gallery, and they were like, they were not able to participate in the lesson, but at least they were able to provide some information and to give some consultations on how the teacher can make the practical part of the lesson with students, and which materials she might need for this practical lesson. And of course, we were thinking about our UNESCO family. This is the network of associated schools in Kyrgyzstan, and especially the coordinator of this network was really helpful. So she was helping to disseminate the information, to encourage our schools from the network and the teachers to cooperate, and actually supported the creation of the ICH Museum, which I will explain a bit later. And of course, some governmental organizations in your country might also be supportive in your initiative. For instance, the National Commission of the Kyrgyz Republic for UNESCO supported the pilot project in Kyrgyzstan, and during the organization of the teachers training, they have helped to organize the process. They shared the promotional materials about the intangible cultural heritage they had. So it was quite very encouraging. Could you please move to the next slide? Yeah, about the communities, this is most interesting and in some cases challenging part to engage the communities, the ICHBers into the learning process. During the project, teachers faced different opportunities and different challenges. And since it was a COVID time, there were many cases and challenges again. So anyway, we managed to invite them, and they were engaged in the project, in the lessons or school activities to the extent they wished or they were able to join. For instance, some of them agreed to participate in the school event or in the lesson and just to share about their practice or what do they do, why do they value this ICH element, and just to have a small discussion with students. So they were able to talk to this ICH bearer and get some understanding about this or that practice or ritual ceremony, etc. As you may see from the picture from the in the left, there is a grandfather sitting in a traditional wearing traditional headwear. So he attended the class in one of our pilot schools, and he shared about the oral tradition of giving a blessing to kids. And at the end, he really gave a blessing for students and for the teachers to reach their educational goals and to become a good good people in the future, and some kind of wishing health and wealth and etc. So it was very exciting for students to see him in the classroom actually. And some of the ICH bearers agreed to co-organize some lessons together and to organize master classes for students, so they were able to practice, to get this hands-on experience how to make this or that craft. For instance, as you may see in the middle, that this is a craftswoman. She is showing the students how to work with felt, how to create patterns, and the meaning of these patterns, and the background behind this practice, etc. So the other community members who were not able to come or to organize a master class, they just donated some of their objects, of their crafts, to support the creation of the ICH museum at school. As you may see here, those are the felt carpets, the small yurts made of felt, the wooden crafts or the musical instruments they had, just to let the kids, the children, have a chance to experience these games or any objects related to ICH, and to actually try to do it not only to practice like in the master classes, but to play, to see, and just to dive into this atmosphere. Could you please move to the next slide? So here we come to the ICH Museum, which I was mentioning before. This Museum of Living Heritage actually is one of the productive outcomes of cooperation of many stakeholders in the project, starting from the teachers, communities, community members, families, students' families, teachers' families, and many other people, as well as the school administration, which supported the creation of the museum at school, in the premises of the school. So we see here how it has started. The teacher of the Kyrgyz language, she had an idea, why not to create a space for children where they can actually dive into this atmosphere of intangible cultural heritage, and when they will be delivering their lessons using methodologies about ICH or with ICH, they would be able to show these objects like the carpets, all the musical instruments, so the children could see and touch and smell and play, and they get real experience, and the whole understanding the concept of what they are talking about right now. So she shared her idea with her colleagues at the same department, and her colleagues actually supported her idea, and they decided that it's really interesting and could be fun for children to learn, and more motivating maybe in some cases. So they shared they started creating a plan how to organize this museum of living heritage at school. And they turned to the school administration, asking whether they have any free spaces or any classes to create this museum. So the school management actually supported and allocated a one room for this museum. So the next step was to find and collect all these ICH objects to make this museum happen. So in this case, the teachers turned to their families, they turned to the school administrations and their families, and they asked the students ask their families. So there is like a chain of cooperation when some parents, community members, which were coming to the lessons before, they just granted some of the objects they had at home. So the whole things they have collected, this is like all the objects were granted from the people in the school, from the school environment and outside of the school, like the community members. So thanks to their, how to say, willing to help and cooperate, we have created this museum, which has various objects, including the wall carpets, felt carpets, the musical instruments, some crafts. So here we see that we have the cooperation of many stakeholders, and this is kind of one of the most productive and successful outcomes from this small initiative, starting from one teacher with her idea and coming to her colleagues, and colleagues coming to the school administration, and school administration is coming to like all the teachers in the school asking for a help. So nowadays we have this museum which is actually still works still at the school, and some of the lessons were conducted and still conducted at this museum. Yes, this is kind of one of the examples how the just teachers were able to create something new and something interesting, and students were really actually excited to have the lessons in the museum, because it is kind of taking students out of the formal school classes when they are sitting on the chair and like asking the questions. They go to the museum, they can there is no chairs or tables, they sit on the floor, and they like more informal atmosphere to to have a lesson, and for kids also to experience something new and in more informal atmosphere to learn about intangible heritage, being surrounded by the intangible cultural heritage objects. So I hope this experience will help you to generate some new ideas how you can manage or obtain different stakeholders to create your own lesson plans or activities within the school, or any other ideas you have in your mind to make your lessons happen or the activities in the school happen.
Thank you very much, Camilla. This is a very interesting example, and really this museum has been a quite innovative aspect of the project. And we can see that through partnership, the partnership itself, finding the partners can require a little bit of time, but in the end, you really put together different brains, different experiences, and in the end, you share the workload too. So it has multiple advantages to get to products that are quite different and innovative. And I take this opportunity to say that in the questions, like many of you, a number of you were commenting that one of the difficulty you had was you didn't know how to bring living heritage into your lessons because you felt you didn't have enough knowledge about ICH. And the good news through this kind of partnerships is that you don't necessarily need to have all the knowledge yourself, because you can bring in the resource people who have that direct knowledge, and that can enrich the lesson to a level that maybe just you through reading would not manage to get to. So it should actually help provide more opportunities. So let me open the floor and ask you if at this stage you have questions, or maybe some of you have already had experience working with partners and would like to share. I don't see in the chat anything, and I don't see any raised hand. Yes, yes.
No, that is my voice,
Oh,
Vanessa.
that was your voice. Sorry.
No, I'm just looking, and I try to encourage right now.
Mhm.
If anybody would like to answer Vanessa's question,
So
can you repeat again, please?
yes, so the question is, have any of you already had experience working with partners, like cultural partners outside the school, and how did it go? What is your experience about that? So we have, I see here,
I see two
contribution. Yes.
yes, two contributions.
I live in village. We still hold the village, the heritage of our daily life, like norm, custom, traditions, and value. But now the students like to play game online much. They didn't notice our lack of seeing the traditional practice. Any suggestion? I think what you're facing here is the reality of many teachers and parents, myself including. So yes, of course, the youth may have different centers of interest, different perceived values. There is no miracle solution, but through this process of slowly integrating some local elements in the lessons, you may try to revive their interest. There are also ways, like I remember actually Montakan here was involved in a program on traditional children's games. And if I recall, there were also video games, including living heritage elements, right, Montakan?
My favorite project, yes.
Yes.
So you can even like make an animation of sort, like, or a kind of a game, like I mean, like 10, 20, 12 years ago, there's no such technology to do a video game. So we basically kind of do a kind of a snapshot of like different scenes that kind of make it into a flip chart, like printable to flip charts and all sorts as well. So that can also go as low tech as that, or video game version, as Vanessa would say. Yeah.
Yes, and we had many examples, for instance, where the students are actually given the task to document living heritage. So they do documentations, they become the researcher. Of course, you need to prepare them a little bit so that they understand ethical principle and so the basic principle of social research. But then they can do, and they can film and take photos and document some of the practice, and they can edit. And we have ended up with very interesting outputs. For instance, in Thailand, they had a full series of documented elements, and then they put them on the map with GPS coordinate, and some of them created a book with recipes, like some of the students had documented recipes. And they turned that into a digital book of recipes. So you are talking about living heritage, you use the topic of living heritage, and at the same time, you don't necessarily disconnect it from the center of interest of youth, which are focusing a lot on audiovisuals and media and social medias and practices. So there are ways to integrate both, to keep them, to bring them to become interested into this heritage. So maybe these are things that you could try. Okay. So
yes, I think another contribution is I think TB Vijayanto is commenting on what you said during your presentation, and it is good for students to know about their original cultures, just like my student when they visit the museums, just to remark on your examples, on Camilla's example as well.
Yes, and I think visiting a museum, whether it is a school-made museum like that one, or an existing museum, is a way to spark discussion.
And I think Mr. TB would like to also share, would like to speak without showing the video. Yes, you can also do so on this particular topic. So Mr. or Miss TB Vijayanto, you can turn on your mic without the video if you would like.
Okay, thank you for your time. Just want to share about the experience last week. My student from my school visiting the museum, and the museum present about the original culture from Tegal. I'm from Tegal, Indonesia, and they look very happy because they know about how is the ancestor or how their past, about the animals, cultures, etc. And then when they visit the museum, they learn much. They can get much about the social culture of my hometown. And then they say that, sir, it's nice to be here because we can learn about our original culture. And then after visiting the museum, I just give them, what is it, form from Google form, and then I ask them to fill in what are they expected after they visiting the museum. They just say it is nice for our culture now. It is better, but maybe we can learn, but we can learn much from the past. I mean, from the ancestor, that we have live in a good community. I mean, a good community, we can help each other. So I asked them more, but why? Why, sir? Because why they just can have a good community and can help each other, because they ask and then can give and share their knowledge and their experience without cell phone. They feel surprised. Is it correct? Yeah, correct. Because we have no cell phone at the time. So we can make a good communication. We can share our knowledge. We can share our ideas. It is good for us to have a cell phone, but it's better for us to have it and use it for the proper, say in Indonesia, we can use it in the right thing. Or for American, we can use it first thing first. What we can do and what we can get from the cell phone, and then we can share much more knowledge, just like we do right now. We can learn not only from our culture or our country, but around the world through the cell phone. I think that's all. They feel very happy because they think that, yeah, when the pandemic it happened, we have no communication with each other because in our class we have no meeting. But when they meet and gather and then can meet their friends in the class, they can speak more, and then they can laugh, and then they can make a good conversation, and then they can live not only by cell phone. And about the positive impact visiting the museum, they have better knowledge that not only by using cell phone we can have a good communication, but we can use it just like a knife. We can use it to sharp our knowledge or make it dumb for the knowledge. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vijayanto. That's really insightful. I also got Vanessa, would you like to comment before I read about other people's contribution?
No, I think it's very important to see a phone or social medias as tools, and that's what we should be. And we use tools as tools for a specific activity, a specific action. So I think it's very true. But we have some comments about nutrition and cooking classes.
Yes.
And without reading everything, I would say that we have a lot of experience with cooking, and if you with cooking classes, cooking lessons about food, and then practices around food, and if you don't know where to start, this is always a good time, a good place to start, using food as an entry point, because everyone will be interested in learning, sharing. Everyone will have access to some knowledge. It will be easy to involve families. Often the food is linked to some rituals or practice in the family or in the community. So if you're not sure how to start with food, for instance. Very, very easy. And you can always go into a cooking class or bringing different food stuff and tasting each other's food. Very good entry point.
I would agree with that. Also, Ms. Maritas Cabanartan said that both written and unwritten culture must be understood by youngsters in order to have deep comprehension in existing trade, it bounced up, or patterns of their own society, and to formulate innovative actions to resolve or address any social issues. Mr. or Ms. Tan said children with special needs also have a good acceptance of traditional culture, as it is very interesting. They can imitate each other in team cooperation, which can enrich their life literature courses.
Yes, and also, I would just add that there were a few examples of lessons with living heritage involving children with special needs. I can think of some, at least in Europe, and it has always been very successful, because suddenly also you bring the practical aspect to it, and rather than just the theoretical aspect. So it's usually quite effective.
Exactly. Ms. Vivian said, during the reading month, I tasked my students to read about old cultural heritage in their birthplace and write a script and video record what they have written and send it as video file in a drive. Many of them realized that their culture is rich, not only in traditional aspect, but also in values.
Mm-hmm. Very good, very interesting example. And I would also recommend, if you haven't done so, when you do research, either in a museum or through text about old culture in the past, old practices in the past, is maybe also to mirror it with what's happening today and to have this reflection and discussion. Because as we mentioned, living heritage is dynamic. It goes on through time. And we are not trying to look only at old stuff, but also have our identity and our practices today. And it's quite important and interesting usually to have this reflection. And often we will see that it may not be that different actually. So, but it can. So, and we can reflect on why it has changed. So I would always encourage you to link to the nowadays practices also, if you can. Okay, I see that Jin Young would like to say something.
Yes, Jin Young, please.
Yes, it's related to the food culture. Actually, in Korea, we've done the kimchi making, kimjang, the kimchi making and sharing culture. And actually, one group of students, they researched about the saving the kimchi during the winter time. It's actually during the old times, the people just use the kind of a big pot and then dig into and then put the pot under the ground to keep it for a long time. However, in these days, it is changed into the kind of electrical refrigerator only for kimchi. It's actually the name is coming from the kimchi, so we call it kimchi. So it's actually the modernized refrigerator. However, it is only focused on the kimchi saving. So actually, during the time, the technique is a kind of moved into the modern technologies, but still is a keep doing. So it's kind of one of the changes, and then the students found out that it's pretty much interesting to kind of where the traditional knowledge got from the modern technologies, just reapplied it, and then how we are using now. So it was the kind of interesting point to share that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for this example. And yes, and we can reflect on how the technology has evolved, and we can also reflect on the pros and cons of traditional and new technologies. And it can be interesting, like for instance, having this electrical kimchi making can be very useful in the sense because it's more reliable. But if you have an electricity shortage, it can be good to know that other techniques existed too. Anyway, these are very interesting discussion that can take place among students, especially in this when we are talking about energy saving. So maybe we take a 5-minute break now. And we come back like just 5 minutes to get a tea and then stretch a little bit. And we quickly come back. And then after that, I will maybe invite Miss Lina to present her example and we will quickly go through the next steps.
Great.
Is that okay for everyone?
Yes, let's take a 5 minutes. So
we're all on different time zones. So look at your clock.
In 5 minutes time, please, is the experience sharing session. Idea sharing, experience sharing by participants. So our long-awaiting participants, Ms. Lina, I would like to invite you to take the floor and share with us what you're doing, please.
Hi, can you see me, Mutanka?
Yes, we can see you very clearly and very pleasantly. Yes,
that's really very inspiring meeting I've ever attended. There's a lot of theory, but at the same time, like our teacher also take this online course, and Mrs. Liu, she continued to contribute to this knowledge to the teacher and the school and the class. So I would love to share some experience we had after she took the course. I think it's back to Vanessa earlier said that we are not only inside the school, but we bring it to the society, community, and to the art museum, and also let the children see the bigger world. Okay, if you allow me, can I share this PPT? Can you guys see it?
Yes, we're seeing your screen right now.
It's a whole screen or just PPT?
Just the PPT, not the full screen, not the show mode yet.
Okay, okay. I will start the show mode. Is it now?
It is.
Okay.
But can I please just ask you to keep it quite brief, please, in a few minutes?
Oh, sure.
I see your PPT is quite long.
I will go through very quick because it's really a lot of pictures from the children that we want to share with you guys, because pictures say it all. This intangible cultural heritage is called Xiabu, which is a Chinese name, but English name is Remy, some Ling material art class project. So basically, I'm gonna go through very quick. First, about the background is we know that over 5,000 years, this tangible material is gonna be, this intangible cultural heritage does not only include Chinese wisdom, value, and spirit, but also has been widely appreciated throughout the world. And China, they had 40 projects to UNESCO's intangible cultural heritage list, ranking first in the world. So today we're talking about how do we make this 5,000 years old and traditional intangible culture into the modern society. So this story started from this Qin, artist Qin's studio. She has been diving inside this cultural heritage for more than 10 years. So then we brought that her knowledge about this Xiabu in heritage to the school. And the first, then this is the first texture material used by Chinese ancestors. So Xiabu records the original way of life of Asian Chinese people. And now, earlier Vanessa said that now we bring it to close related to our modern society. So it contains so much rich cultural and artistic content, which could give a huge help to Chinese children and students to learn how to respect and love Mother Nature and study the various life skills from it. So this is the Shuren minority school, and they started to take this class in. So basically, this is the Xiabu. We can see Qin is here. You can give a very 1 minute brief talk about this Xiabu material. She's the artist. Qin, can you talk? Yes. You're on mute. So that's the cooperation between the school and the artist, like what we said about it earlier. It's not only about one small school environment, but also talking about the artist and experience with the children. Yes, Chin. Can you unmute? No, you unmute. Can you unmute? 你静音了，开一下。Okay, now.
还是要讲我以为我不
Yeah,
讲。
okay, now you're talking about this.
Oh, okay.
下部.
Okay, thank you, Nina. But this is from beginning. Okay, 下部. It's made of electron plant running by hand, wool plants cloth, drip cloth, original from China, long fiber, strength air permeability, faster head transportation, characteristic patty more suitable for summer wear. So it's also commonly known as summer. If I want to say, in fact, 下部 is Chinese pin, because we were very fine you wear clothes in summer, and a lot of Chinese pin 华夏. So about two words together, so we name 下部. So 下部 is a hand traditional clothing fabric. Since ancient times, it has been used to make deep clothes, cut clothes, crowns, turbans, and hands, mourning clothes, and so on. The more ordinary source of 下部. Okay.
Yeah, so because we have very short time, I think we just give that everyone a brief understanding of 下部, this material, so everyone understand now. It's a kind traditional Chinese texture that we made clothes for 5,000 years. Yeah, I can take it over now. 我可以接下来说了. So now we're talking about how are we gonna bring this art project into our courses and workshop. So this is a school, you can see they permit time that 60 minutes every Monday afternoon that invite very experienced artists and the teacher inside the school and give children the concept of what is 下部 and let them make their own 下部 material art craft. And also we took them outside in the 下部museum to see the process of how they make 下部. For instance, here is a lot of our historical place, like over 1,000 years. As you can see, children can participate how to make 下部 themselves. So that's really very vivid experience, not only in a book. So make knowledge into experience. That's our goal. So you can see those children are very interested in making, these are all their own art. You know, it's not teacher, not other artists, but they make their own art from the texture to the end. And then also the color we use is pure the plant color method to do it, not chemistry or anything else. So teach them to love the nature, and then make mixed media art piece like I teach them in our courses. I'm based in Norway, but I work in China and Norway. We make a lot of art works, and Chin also and Liu, they make it into the fashion stage for the children. They are very, very interested. Every semester it will be a round show. So those are the children's way to express how lovely they want to respect this 1,000 years old called Su Hanchen Song Dynasty, because this is like a picture about one children, and now 100 children, sorry. So 100 children now making their own 下部 artists respect to the old Chinese culture and history. So they even write a lot of poem about this. So now we use literature and art form to teach the children how to know your ancestor and how to contribute it to the modern life. And so we have a lot of experience, like I say, just cruise very quick. We have art exhibitions, both in China and overseas. So this is me, our whole family participants through the internet. Like earlier, you guys talked about social media. We use Zoom to teach the children in China from Norway. And also this is an educator from United States. So this is not only a one classroom event, but the whole society and the community, including the 83 years old grandma participant to make shabu art craft. So we have a lot of achievement. Like you can see, these are our achievements inside Chongqing, China, and outside this Chongqing city, and also some international. So we also have some evolution from the online courses Vanessa talked about. We use children as art project to have their self-evaluation form or study partner evaluation form, the teacher's evaluation form, activity evaluation forms. So basically let them have some feedback, what they've gained from it. So they said that I'm really experienced a very interesting and very valuable piece of history here. And so they are satisfied, so we are satisfied. As you can see earlier, we also have some institutional cooperation nationwide and international wise. So that's why we are here. We want to gain maybe more support from you guys, and or maybe you have all valuable guidance, suggestions for us on our stage. What can we do better? So this is our share. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Lina. Thank you very much. Like I've been,
for this very, very comprehensive presentation. It's very useful. Well, I mean, I will not answer directly to your question because it may take too much time, but I suggest that maybe you could submit your lesson plans, and then I will give you feedback through this process, or we can continue the discussion. And if people have some suggestion, or if they want to enter into cooperation, use the chat now to go through that. As usual, we are always having too much discussion and getting a bit late on the program. But maybe let's go quickly through the second step and to keep our discussion going. I think you see correctly?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay. So the second step is how to connect a living heritage and a school topic. And this is really about finding the entry point. And as we have seen here from a number of examples, often it starts from the living heritage, like the shabu that we have just seen, or the dice that we have seen in the example given by Camilla earlier. But sometimes the teachers can also start directly from their curriculum and their curricular objectives and try to see if there would be some living heritage that could be used to enrich different types of activities. Like this happens a lot, for instance, in science. Like the teacher will say, oh, I need to show vibrations. What can I do to use vibration? What can I use to show different tones and pitch in music, etc. And also a number of themes, like your school may have a special themes, sustainable development, GCED, multiculturalism, etc. So this could also be an entry point to find interesting ICH and bring activities. And most important, student needs interest. I could not focus too much on that, because if you catch their interest from the beginning of the lesson, you have them until the end, and then they will probably remember what you've said for a long time. It's useful to have a reality check. What are the resources that would be needed for a lesson? And is this feasible to do this lesson? What are the barriers and limitations that you may have and the constraints that would prevent the lesson? And then change the lesson. Otherwise, it's a lot of preparation work. But I would really encourage you to give a little bit of thought at this stage and more thorough thoughts later before you do too much preparation time. Camila, would you like to talk about Norvus?
Yes, this is another example from Kyrgyzstan. As Vanessa said, there are different multiple entry points how to use ICH in your lessons and activities in school and outside the school as well. So in our case, we use the national celebration of Nowruz, which is a large-scale event and celebrated at the time of spring equinox on the 21st of March, not only in Kyrgyzstan, but in 12 more countries. Like Azerbaijan, India, Tajikistan, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and others. I know we have participants from these countries maybe this day at this webinar. So it's one of the most important holidays of the year, and it includes a variety of ceremonies, rituals, games, dishes. So traditionally, every year we celebrate it on a national level, local level, and every school in the country dedicates a whole school event to the celebration of Nowruz, of this festivity. And during the 2021, when we were in the process of realization, the pilot project in Kyrgyzstan, our teachers said that the celebration of Nowruz as a whole school event can be an entry point how we can integrate the living heritage to our activities. And so they decided to celebrate Nowruz in 2021 using different approach. So how they did it? Usually they celebrate by dancing, playing musical instruments, telling the stories and about the origin of Nowruz and how it's celebrated in different countries, in Kyrgyzstan as well. But this year they wanted to introduce more and promote the peer-to-peer learning between students. So what the teachers did, they asked the students from the high school to select one living heritage they want to learn more about more in depth, and they asked the students from the secondary and primary school to select one living heritage and learn about this practice or element more in depth. So what they did during the celebration, they organized the lessons where the students were exchanging the information they found about the selected practice or the ICH elements. So as you can see from this picture, a student from the high school is explaining the traditional game, the archery, to the students from the primary school. And then in turn, the students from the primary school were explaining about Kyrgyz fairy tales and the small epics they were to the students from the high school. So by this, they have created a set of lessons during the celebration of the Nowruz in school. So we had like 10 lessons, and during these 10 lessons, 10 ICH elements or more were like explored by students through peer-to-peer learning. So by this, I just wanted to share with you that there is an opportunity to integrate the living heritage in your school lessons and activities using thematic events or national holidays or local celebrations as an entry point as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Camila. Yes, and I would also remind you that in the resource package that you find in the MOOC and also in the guide that has just been published, there is one of the tools, one of the practical tools, which actually provide a lot of suggestions on how to link different subjects with different types of living heritage. So it can, of course, not cover everything, but it can give you a lot of inspiration on where to start. So by this stage, so we have done step one, so we understand a little bit the type of living heritage we have around us and which partner we have been working with. We have step two, which means that we have, from this broad list of intangible heritage around us, we have somehow picked one and connected one with a subject. So we are at that stage now where we have these two elements, and we know that we want to use this to teach use this dance or this music or this practice, this carnival to teach into different types of subject, math, science, literature, art, etc. You name it, depending on who you're working with. So now we go to step 3. It's quite important to learn about the selected ICH a little bit more in depth so that you will have relevant content to integrate into your lesson and that you can design your activities accordingly. I think in the interest of time, what do you think? Should we do the quiz, LK, or should we start? I think we maybe skip it. Huh?
We can skip the quiz. Yes, please.
Yes. So what information can you collect about the living heritage? Of course, it's a very vast topic and people are writing books and books about one specific element. But here we have listed a few questions that could be a starting point. And you will also find these questions in the guide as a starting point for your research. So you can try to find out what it is, who practices it, when is it practiced, is this every time or just at specific time of the year, where is it practiced, how is it practiced, how is it transmitted, and very important, what is the meaning, the value, and the social function. Often we forget this dimension, but it's really what links to our identity. So why are we doing this particular practice? And then you can have different ways of researching. Like you can look at documents, and there are certainly a lot of documents that exist. Make sure that the sources you're selecting are reliable and well documented. In this case, there are a list of reliable source in the guide. But also what is quite interesting, as we have talked a lot about community, is to actually collect primary data by talking directly to the living heritage practitioners. So by doing interviews or group discussion, meeting with community members, or even participating in some of the events if they are taking place at a decent time. And this research can be done by the teachers, preliminary, by one or several teachers, but it can also very well be done by the students themselves. And we have had a number of exciting examples of students doing some research work and having a lot of fun collecting this information, and some of them was shared already in the chat. So I would just highlight the fact that it is important to collect information in an ethical manner, and several principles of ethics are also described in the kit and in the resource kit. If you want to take photos or videos, it's very important to inform the community, to be transparent about the objectives, and to really respect their communities. And if they don't want to share something, they have their reason. No need to push them. And it's also very important usually to feed back to the community the information, so that we make sure that we don't misinterpret what the information they have given us. So I would recommend that you really respect the free prior informed consent principle, which is described in the resource kit and in the online course. And I would like to read this quote from one of the teacher in Nepal, which is, "I found a huge gap among my students where many of them are from different districts but grew up in Kathmandu. We have students from all 70 districts of Nepal in the school. They do not seem to know much about their own culture. When they could not do the assignment, I searched on the internet and I found a list of possible ICH from where they are from. I asked them to list them and look into them, and a few children came back with some very thorough essays about ICH practice in their own communities. I also put the students' classroom photo on the internet, which also motivated them. Now they are excited, and I wish I could do more of this." And this is important to remember, that some students, they may not have knowledge because they have migrated and their parents didn't think of transmitting it, or maybe they do have the knowledge, but they don't realize it. And this is often what is the case. if you tell them what is your heritage, you may not have an answer, but when you start really digging a little bit, they actually understand the values. It's just a matter of finding a way to get to this information. So Camelia, would you like to talk about this interesting project in Kyrgyzstan?
Yes, here is more example from Kyrgyzstan. There are different ways how we can learn more about ICH or selected ICH elements. And this approach was chosen by the teachers to help the students to develop their skills of research and selecting the information and presenting in the classroom. So this was individual research projects prepared by the students. What we did, the teacher, at the beginning, the teacher conducted the introductory lesson, what is intangible cultural heritage, and then she asked students to select one ICH element they like and they wish to explore more. So after selecting the ICH elements they wanted to explore, the teacher explained the tasks. They need to make a small research on these ICH elements, and then they need to prepare a presentation about this selected element. It can be any type of presentation they wish, just to foster their creativity. It can be a PowerPoint presentation, any handmade painting, or anything they wish to do just to present what they have found from their research. So during the research project, the students were turning to the teacher and getting the guidelines from the teacher and sometimes the answers to some questions. For instance, for the resources where they can find the appropriate information about this or that practice in the internet, or the students were also asking their families, their parents and grandparents, what do they know about this ICH? They're reading books, using UNESCO resources to prepare their works. So what we had at the end, the students learned more about the selected ICH elements. Here it's worth to mention that the teacher who was conducting this individual research projects with students, she said that even though we were not able to engage all students in the class, like she gave the assignment for the whole class, but only like 60% of students prepared their research projects, and 40% were kind of maybe lazy, we don't know, to prepare something in research. However, when these 60% of students were researching and then presenting their findings, the other 40% of students were listening. So in this case, we can say that we managed to learn more about, to help the students to learn more about several ICH elements by preparing or researching, or even just listening in the classroom. So, and the next goal was to foster the creativity of students, and we see we have very different project deliverables they prepared, which we can see from the next slide. And the next, another highlight from this ICH project, research project, that there was it helped to build intergenerational dialogue between students and their families, because in many cases the family members, the parents, were helping their students to prepare this project. As you can see here, I have some examples, like they were making some drawings. The teacher realized that some students are really talented in drawing. It turned out to be those who were not were too lazy to draw, they just printed and glue it pictures and made a small books about this ICH element. Another student who chose the embroidery, she actually tried to embroider this and applied these traditional patterns. And during her presentation, she explained how it feels to embroider something and was it fun or not. And her grandmother actually was helping her to embroider these patterns. And then she explained the meaning of this pattern as well, sharing her experience with her classmates. Another interesting example is, as you can see from here, is it's soap made of plants. And these students chose this ICH element like traditional medicine and how the plants are used in traditional medicine in Kyrgyzstan. Her mother turned out to be an expert working in the National Academy of Sciences, who is a researcher of traditional medicine. So her mother helped her with her research project. And at the end, in order to show something for her classmates, she made soap using these traditional plants to show her classmates, because it was a time of pandemic and we were sitting sometimes blocked at homes and learning online. She said that for the pandemic is really like actual to have a soap, but this soap will be it's made of natural plants and it's good how to say, like very useful these days. And it's made using by traditional knowledge used to make soaps, and the plants are kind of she has selected for the research are used in the soap as well. So anytime there were different examples and different like outcomes from this individual research project, and we were so excited to see how creative students are, and helped them to explore more in depth different ICH elements, engaging their parents. And yes, this is one of the opportunities how we can learn more about ICH. Not only teachers have to learn about it and then tell the children or the students, but the students can do this work as well and earn extra points, for instance, for their studies. So yeah, thank you.
Vanessa, please unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yes. So again, a very interesting approach. Thank you, Camilla. So let's have a very brief stop here to check if there are any question or any comment at this stage.
Any questions or any remarks
about these two stops?
It seems everybody seems to be very happy and impressed, Vanessa, according
very
to
good.
The comment.
Okay, all right. So I'm very happy about that.
Mr. Rupandra, who was involved in the Nepal piloting, was saying that we had a wonderful experience in Janaseva school and Mangal school.
It was a very rich example where, yeah, just to say for 5 minutes that for a few seconds that, yes, Mr. Rupandra is a master craftsman and he was actually going to teach inside the class. So it was very, very interesting. Okay, so if there are no any comment, let's go back to the presentation and to the next steps, which is about designing the lesson plan and teaching. So I know most of you or many of you are teachers, and I am certainly not daring to explain you how to teach and how to develop a lesson plan. You have all the experience, but what we are trying here is just to give you a few hints on how to do that, what elements to consider when you are actually teaching with learning heritage. And when we are like, every lesson will have some sort of lesson goals or lesson objectives or competencies to be acquired depending on the standards. But what we are trying here to emphasize is that it's quite important that living heritage, the component of living heritage that you have chosen, appears as early as this stage in your lesson, that it is expressly included in the lesson goal and objectives, because it will allow you, first of all, not to forget about this core aspect of the lesson, but it will also allow you later to evaluate if you have reached your objective. And you're trying to see if the students have reached these goals at these objectives through the lesson, if the lesson has managed to create awareness about living heritage, and if living heritage has added value to the pedagogical activities. That's why we encourage you in the lesson objectives, for instance, to include elements such as students are becoming aware of XYZ type of practice, or we are teaching literature, which would be a classical like literature form or a poetic form, poetic expression, with the help of this kind of oral expression or this type of traditional literature elements. So if you include this wording, suddenly your lesson becomes framed and customized for living heritage. And I know this is a little bit tricky maybe to achieve, but there are many examples that are given in the guides also. Now, we are, of course, interested in bringing living heritage in the lesson, but it doesn't mean that every single aspect of your lesson has to be about living heritage. So it can be like the core of the lesson, like we have seen in this example earlier of the dice, for instance, like the students are learning something concrete with the dice. So the dice are presented at the beginning and used during the lesson and played with at the end of the lesson. So they are everywhere. But sometimes it can just be a little tweak at the beginning of the lesson to raise the interest of the lesson, and then you can go back to your regular teaching. Or it can be a cross-cutting theme for several subjects, as we have seen in the Korean examples. You use living heritage, you explain about the living heritage at the beginning, and you integrate it into multiple subjects. So it's very flexible. And we, of course, open the opportunity to use different games, discussion, demonstration, audiovisual materials, inviting practitioners so that they can present their own experience. It's having a lecture by community member can be very, very efficient. Active pedagogies work very well in this context. So we have seen different presentations, but here, for instance, on this image, you see Nepalese students who are in a math class, but they are using a math class related to a social practice, and the students are trying to relive this practice, to really understand it properly. And it can be integrated through home assignment and research, as we have just seen with the individual research project in Kyrgyzstan. Just a small note, sometimes in living, like you will have, for instance, traditional way of transmitting knowledge. Often it will be through storytelling or different types of oral traditions, or for instance, the master apprentice way of teaching a different special craft, for instance. And it can be interesting, if possible, to bring in this traditional pedagogy, this way of transmitting knowledge inside the classroom as one of your pedagogic tools. So a quite different one maybe, but you could imagine using storytelling as the start of your lesson, for instance. When you prepare your lesson, you will, of course, select and develop a number of pedagogical materials. It's important that there are resources on the living heritage that you are presenting, so that you have this information sharing process. But of course, you don't want to be too overwhelming. The students are not expected to become specialists into a certain craft within a few hours. I particularly like this example from Cambodia, where in a one page, they managed to present the core steps, for instance, of mat weaving. They explain what reed they are using to weave the mats, and they are proposing an activity. So it's very concise, one page, and you have really the core of the lesson in there. Of course, the lesson is much more developed than that, but in one page, in one handout, you have the essence of the living heritage and the lesson included. You can reflect on the lesson space and schedule. I assume that most of your classes are held in classroom, which is a safe space, and you know this space, you can prepare it in advance. But we have seen through testimonies that going outside, for instance, to museum or to do different practices with the federations, etc., in the schoolyard, to practice the sports can be a very efficient and engaging for the students. You change the way, the traditional way of teaching, and this in itself encourages them to be more present and more focused. Like just going to the Kyrgyz ICH museum in their class, they do the same class, but they do it in a different environment, and it helps them, it increase their motivation. Scheduling of the lesson, we can also play a little bit with it if you have flexibility. I don't know, some teachers I know are able to rearrange their period and exchange with colleagues to have a larger group of periods together to, for instance, do an activity. And again, reflect on the resources that are needed for your lesson at that stage. And then there is the class itself, the lesson itself, and making the teaching and learning with living heritage happen. And of course, we want the lesson to stimulate awareness on this living heritage, and if possible, the practice. And very, very important, we would like it to open conversation as much as possible among the students so that they can share their ideas, they can share their viewpoint. Even if you're in a community who has the same practice, they are celebrating the same New Year, or they are making the same dishes, there may be variations. And ICH, there is no right or wrong way to practice an ICH. It's very important. There is not authentic way of practicing an ICH, because this ICH is dynamic. It can change constantly. So it means that a practice can be different from one family to the other, and of course from one community to the other. And having these exchanges, this discussion among students is very enriching. It will really raise their appreciation for diversity. So we really encourage you to prepare a very good lesson plan, but to remain flexible if possible when you're teaching, so that it can be adjusted to the need of the students in the classroom. Because often that's when you start teaching, you probably know that. I've talked with many friends, teachers. It's often when the magic appears, the magic of teaching, that discussion changes the path and you engage in very, very enriching exchanges. So don't miss up on this if they happen. Camilla, would you like to present this example?
Yes. This is an experience of the social sciences teacher. She was teaching in a middle school, and actually by this lesson she wanted to explain the power of cooperation and unity. So what she did before the lesson, in the process of organizing the lesson, she wanted to obtain the more knowledge and information about the traditional craft of quilting, which is called kurak in Kyrgyz language. Quilting is a process of sewing pieces of fabric together, which at the end create a common pattern. And the materials used are traditionally any type of fabric, leather, felt, which vary in sizes and colors. So the teacher said that she was lacking the information, and she wanted to just clarify which technique is right, and she wanted to know more. So she turned to the local gallery, Saimalu Tash gallery, to know, to obtain the information. And initially she wanted to invite the craftspeople from this gallery to join her lesson, but unfortunately due to the COVID, they were not able to join, but they were very cooperative and helped her with the information. They shared the information they had available, their experience, and they also suggested her how to organize this practical part of the lesson, as you may see from the pictures. Suggested which type of materials she can use during her practical part. So during the lesson, she introduced the topic of the lesson and the ICH element she chose. And then she gave some individual assignment for students to their own crafts, own korak. So as you may see in the picture, the students were creating their own works, different, depend on their imagination and what they want. And then they had discussions about the topic of the lesson, where the students reflect what they think about the ICH element as well. There is a Kyrgyz saying that Kurak is a renewal of old, creation of something big from something small. So this was the message of the teacher to bring to the students, that we are in cooperation. When we are united, we have more power. So by the end, she gave a group work, group assignment for students to join their crafts into one big canvas. So at the end, they created one big canvas for the school, and they hanged this canvas at school. And the one was called The Shreds of Friendship, which is, I think, very empowering and has kind of messages, strong message from the students and from the teacher, and as a valuable outcome from this lesson. And they managed to do it. So I think it's very inspiring if you have such kind of quilting crafts, techniques. You may use this example as, I don't know, as an example to organize your lessons as well. So this was, I think, yeah, the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, and it can be probably applied to other type of craft practices, even if it's not quilting. So let's go quickly through the last two steps, and before we go back to the discussion. So step 5 is about designing and sharing your experience. Documenting and sharing your experience, sorry. So why documenting? Because it can help you for later use, because you can assess your students more consistently, and you can also look at the impact of ICH, like you can look at the impact of your lessons on ICH awareness and ICH potentially safeguarding. And it's quite useful, I think, to document the whole process, like your preparation process, the development process, and the teaching and the lesson outcome. So, so that you have an overview, and then you can adjust what was a bit difficult, and focus on what went well. And we encourage you to inspire over colleagues. This project and the guide, the resource kit, is really built up on many examples, and I hope you find them inspiring. We have here Camilla and several of you sharing examples, so we see the power of sharing, the power of bringing new inspiration and new experiences. So use all the way you can to share with your colleagues, so that more realize that it is actually feasible, and that they can try in their area too, in their school too. An example on sharing experience.
After the end of the pilot project, we just wanted to organize a session where the teachers from the pilot projects in Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan were able to share their experiences and challenges they had during the pilot project. So it was organized online in 2021, and there were so many ideas and outcomes from this online session when they shared their activities, their plans, and their future plans, how to disseminate this approach among their other schools or among the associate schools network. So it was really interesting to listen to the experiences of teachers from from Kazakhstan as well. And just recently in November 21 and 22, we have organized a national workshop for teachers on bringing the living heritage to the classroom. Thanks. The aim of the workshop was to scale up the activity in Kyrgyzstan to promote this initiative on integrating the living heritage into the school curriculum to formal and non-formal education. We have piloted this project and we have seen very interesting outcomes from this project. So this time we wanted to disseminate information not only for these pilot schools, but to all members of UNESCO ASP.NET Schools Network in Kyrgyzstan. And the teachers were really very active during the training, and we had developed more than 10 lesson plans of lessons and activities, how we can use ICH or how we can teach about ICH in the lessons, as well as creating linkages of lessons about ICH with other educational priorities as education for sustainable development, global citizenship education, and the gender equality. So at the end of the workshop, the teachers they said that actually we were teaching about, we are teaching about intangible cultural heritage, but we didn't know that it is called intangible cultural heritage, and there is a wonderful possibility how we can integrate it into our lessons and how we can make our lessons more fun for our students. So yes, I think that was very interesting session, interesting training and information sharing platform. At the end, the coordinator of our ASP.NET Schools Network in Kyrgyzstan, she proposed to continue this initiative and not to leave that, stay in the chat and share their experiences, so we can collect these experiences then and create something more for the other teachers. So to to disseminate this experience to other schools and other teachers, so as to growing our network, our family who is working on bringing the living heritage to the classroom in Kyrgyzstan and abroad as well, if possible. So yes, Vanessa.
Thank you very much. And then let's look quickly at the last step before we discuss. So the last step is about how to evaluate the result. Of course, you're all teachers, you know all about assessments of the learning outcomes. This is one major objective in your curriculum and in your work. But here again, what we are trying to do is to measure to which extent the students understand the information about living heritage, and does this raise awareness? Does this raise appreciation? Do they become more interested in that? So I am very happy to see, like, for instance, Lina was using student self-assessment and peer assessment. These are very interesting tools, especially in this case. You can get feedback from your peers, and of course, feedback from the teachers. You can have your classical exam and test, but you can also look at the child development from different aspects, for instance, on their social-emotional aspects of it. And so this is from the teacher to student type of assessment, but you may also want to do a self-evaluation of the process, because bringing living heritage in your lesson requires some effort. Sometimes you need to do some research, some thinking, some collaboration with colleagues or community members. So in the end, is this a worthwhile investment of your time? Has it added value to your process? Does it make the lesson more fun, more interesting, more meaningful? Do you notice if the students are participating more, exchanging dynamic in the class? And for this, you can do it through simple observation, through reflecting on your process because you have documented it, by getting colleagues' feedbacks and by getting students' feedback on why they if they liked it, why they liked it. And I have to admit that when we have done this kind of assessment in the past during pilot projects, we had some very interesting testimonies from students, including one who was saying, we are always very busy, but if we like something, we will find the time for it. And that's what is happening with the lesson with ICH. We like them, so we take the time for it, which I think is quite powerful, and it's a very interesting conclusion to this approach. So having said that, we have gone very briefly through the steps. You have seen, I hope, more content on the lesson, on the online course. Do you have any specific comments, personal experience that you would like to share, or some questions about these steps? Is anything unclear? Do you have questions that remain unanswered?
The floor is open for hand raise and open mic, or
So
if you would like to type as well.
In the meantime, I can also maybe answer a few of the questions that were received online previously. For instance, there were a number of questions about how to deal with students' short attention span and with their attitude, and how to engage students, for instance, especially difficult students. There is no magical solution about that, but I like experience seems to show that when you engage in practical activities, in hands-on activities, in discussion where students are taking an active role, their engagement and their focus increase. So when you do a lesson with living heritage, usually you have more of these opportunities, or you have a lot of these opportunities to bring in this very hands-on components. You can do experiment with them, you can have the students practice them, you can engage in exchange and group discussions. So it's a trial and error thing, of course, but I would encourage you to try to see if just by bringing this different content, especially content students are familiar with, because suddenly they can connect a topic in the school book that they may not necessarily be interested in to something practical. And maybe this connection will help them become more interested. So I hope, at least, many experiences show that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we get a question from Dini. Is it possible to collect the lesson plan without the evaluation step? This semester has ended this November in my school, and next semester starts in January. I think it is impossible to implement the lesson according to the deadline.
Oh, we are not asking you to if you're talking about the submission of the lesson plan, you don't need to have tested the lesson plan in classes before. We are asking, I mean, if you have, it's good, because then you can also adjust maybe your lesson plan based on the experience, but it's not compulsory. So you don't need to have the full-fledged evaluation of your students as a submission, as part of the submission.
Yes, just to inform you again about this, like in a rather lengthy comment, Dini, and many people, it's just a challenge, so to say. Like, challenge is like a game. Like, we just want to know like whether you are quite engaged in the online course, and we would like to encourage you by, if you want to share with us the lesson plan that you just developed, and we will give you a comments for improvement after, and after that you might want to try using it in your school. It depends on you. It's not like that we force you to try it now, because it's just impossible, as you know.
Mhm.
And okay, more
Okay.
yeah, more
New
question from
question.
Diana.
Yeah, so is there a limit on how many lessons will get the recognition from UNESCO? Well, we're not really recognizing your lesson. You're submitting them to us, and we will provide feedback in a way. It's at this stage, it is not a competition or anything like that. Just to clarify. It may be that there is the possibility of publishing some of the lesson plans on a platform. When we will look at the platform, we may select lessons from different countries, different contexts, different type of ICH, different type of subjects, to have a variety. Like, our objective is to cover, to inspire as much as possible, so to have as many contexts as possible. If your lesson is not published, it doesn't mean it's not good. It may be because we have already published one that is fairly similar in content or context. And then there is another question: will there be a better implementation level between STEM or humanitarian themes? You mean as a starting point? I mean, yes. Okay. No, not really. It really depends on the living heritage that you're looking at. It really depends on the aspect of the component of the curriculum you're looking at. I truly believe that every living heritage practice can be applied to most subjects in schools, and every school subject can be taught with some sort of living heritage. Doesn't mean it has to happen all the time, otherwise you lose the novelty effect, but there is this opportunity. And we have seen very exciting science and technology classes with living heritage, and we have seen very exciting social science classes and very exciting literature classes. Very different experience. The teachers are extremely creative. Like, you guys are extremely creative when it comes to that. So congratulations in advance to all of you. But yeah, we have seen a very, very unusual connection, or unexpected connection, brought forward and working very well in classroom. I remember some that I thought, wow, this comes from far, like in Pakistan, using the paint on the truck to use chemistry, to study the chemistry of the paint, for instance, which, like, I don't know how they came up with that idea, but it worked very well. A lot of physics and then music, of course, is taking place, but also I saw recently a paper maker who was talking about many very exciting physics experiments on that. And some people building ladders in mathematics, in very exciting experience also, like very, very different connections with STEM, but also very exciting social studies classes.
Thank you, Vanessa. I think there is no more questions, so to say.
Okay, so if there is no question, I will take just a few minutes to briefly talk. We will not go through the content of module 5 because there would not be enough time to cover it. But let me just show you one part that I would like to highlight, because I care deeply about it. Am I on the right one? No, I'm not on the right presentation, sorry. This one, okay. Okay, so I really would like to focus for a minute on teaching with living heritage in multi-classroom, multicultural classroom environment. And we have had many questions about that also in the intro, like how if the students come from different background, how if the students don't know the living heritage of others, how do we do if students don't know our living heritage, or et cetera, et cetera. And multi-classroom environments are quite widespread now. We have students coming from different countries, different regions in most places, most schools. And I think we should see that as a challenge, but not an obstacle. It's a level of difficulty that can bring a lot of richness to the classroom. And so in module 5, you have one lecture that is providing you a number of suggestions. Like, for instance, you can select a widely practiced elements. Like every community will have some form of New Year, or will have some form of celebration for weddings, will have some form of birthday celebrations. So you can start from one in one community as the starting point, and then open the discussion to the students on how they do that in their own country. Hence the importance of encouraging respectful discussion in the classroom, because you don't want to have the students claiming their own celebration is better than the others. It's not at all the point. The point is to say we are doing different things. There is diversity in there, but we may see the same value in this type of celebration. And you can also practice, select a widespread celebration, like Camilla was talking earlier about Nowruz. It's present in many countries. And even if you live in Kyrgyzstan and you're not Kyrgyz and you don't celebrate Nowruz in your community, if you live in Kyrgyzstan, you will have seen it. So students will be familiar with it one way or another. So they feel a connection, maybe not a personal connection, but at least they have some familiarity with it, so they can still connect to it in a certain way. You can encourage the students to research their own living heritage, and that's again the example of the Kyrgyz research project, and each of them present to the others. And then throughout the year, for instance, you can select the heritage. Like, let's say you have 3 different ethnic group in your class, and like you will start with one, and then you do a lesson that focuses on the heritage of one community, and then a few months later, a few weeks later, you would do another lesson and you will focus on another community, and then on, and you can this way display different groups and encourage everyone to be in the spotlight. So there are different ways, and I would really encourage them to see that as a challenging opportunity and not being scared of it. Camilla, would you like to speak about this interesting example in Nepal?
Yeah, this is very interesting example about teaching and celebrating the multiculturalism through the folk songs in Nepal. Actually, this lesson was taught by the social sciences subject about the celebration of New Year by the Tamang communities. And during the celebration of the New Year, they have a song called Tamang Selo, which was explained and introduced by the teacher. And then the teacher asked students to share their own folk songs they liked. It doesn't have to be the folk song which is from their community, just in general which songs they liked. And at the end of the lesson, they practiced and tried to perform the song they have chosen together, and they were trying to teach one another how to sing. Even they didn't know the language, they were trying to perform it together. So this was the way how the students from different communities were trying to teach each other about the one selected ICH element is a folk song dedicated to the celebration of the New Year. So yes, this is one of the examples from the Nepal, and this is a real example which happened to, which was organized in the Nepal and piloted during the pilot project. Vanessa, you're muted.
Unmute.
Sorry. Yes. So yeah, this is a very important topic to consider, because we are in a time where people are moving a lot around the globe in their country, to different countries, etc. So we end up with having a lot of mixity, and it's it can really be enriching. So we are in the last few minutes of this meeting. Checking.
Is there any burning questions or any comments? Well, actually, we would prefer questions as well, like, because like the objective of this particular session is to, you know, clear some of your doubt from what you have like in taking the online course in particular. And just to clarify again on the lesson plan, that everybody seems to be very eager to submit. You can submit the lesson plan, as I have announced in the chat. We're still running this particular challenge of you sharing with us your newly designed or your existing lesson plan related to using intangible heritage or living heritage in your classroom. So that could be sent through the link provided in the website that I already shared. Like I'm just going to share with you again, just to show you the here. So this particular website that I put in the chat will go to this one. We'll go to this page. The step 1 and step 2 is what we have already finished already. So it has been kind of cut out. The step 3 is to develop a lesson plan using your knowledge from the online course. You might submit the lesson plan as a final assignment in the online course in order to get your first certificate of completion of the online course. You can also submit the same or the improved version of that particular lesson plan again through this link. So once you click this link, it will go to a Google form that you can submit, like put in your details and upload your lesson plan and then submit that. And then we're going to get back to you with comments for improvement. We're not going to judge whether it is good or it is bad, it is what. We are only going to comment that you could also improve in terms of pedagogy or in terms of something that is related, or we might share with you some of the existing example elsewhere, so to inspire you even more. And then you can also, you can choose to, you know, improve your lesson plan, and you can go along with trying it in your own terms at your school. Like, so depends on how you negotiate that with your school director and students. But we're not going to be able to monitor or evaluate or assess the success of what you are doing at your school, because that's your issue. But in then sending you the comments for improvement, we will also give you the certificate of achievement in the process, just so that you achieve in completing this particular tiny challenge that we are running this year. Okay. You can also use our resource kit, which is a more detailed information on top of the online course in here as well. And so this particular resource kit now is available for download for free. Right now it is in English and Russian. We will have more language version coming in a few months' time, including Nepali, Cambodian, Khmer language, Thai language, and many more, and Korean language as well. So please stay tuned, and we're going to inform you, since we already have your email, you're now in our network. We're going to keep sending you rather annoying email from me. And so to keep you updated and kind of work with you in the process of what you're aspiring to do at your school. Okay, we got a question from Mr. Joseph Sabala, could we choose a particular living heritage which is rather extinct or practiced by only very limited number of individuals, say a family or a group? Vanessa?
Why not? Yes, I am not muted. Why not? If you think it works in the lesson, if you think the students may be interested in that, if it works with the subjects you have selected, why not? I don't know what would be your ultimate objectives for selecting that particular one, but it can be very interesting. There is no restriction on that. It may be more difficult to find resources though. At the same time, if you have access to this limited group and if they are willing to share information, it can work very well. I would like just ask you just to on the practical side, because I see that some of you are planning to revise your lesson plan. If you could just drop a quick email so that then we revise if you're planning to do so, can you inform us? I'm not sure through which email address, that we don't revise your current version. Otherwise, it's not very productive. And when you send it, write revise somewhere that we know it's a new version.
You can also inform me, like if you plan, like if you decided to revise the lesson plan that you have already submitted to us via the Google form that I just showed you. You know where it is already. You just email me, like, because like everybody seems to have my email, which is the m.suwanatab@unesco.org, because I emailed you every week since. So you can email me just to let me know that you are revising your lesson plan, so I can notify Vanessa and other experts that not to read your current version that you have already submitted yet, but to wait for your new version. Okay, if you can do so, it will be a big help for us, so we don't have to, work on the same thing over and over again. So if you are planning to do that, please drop us an email just right after this webinar, so we can know that we freeze your entry, and then we can look for other people's entries in the meantime. Okay, so you have made it to the end, and I have just shared with you the link to a Google form for you to evaluate our webinar and to get your certificate of participation. Please, everyone, pay attention to the chat box. Yeah, to the chat box on your right. The link that is the Google form link, I'm gonna just put it over again right now. Please click in there and make an evaluation, and then put your name, put the name that you want to be present in, to be seen in the certificate, and that certificate will be automatically sent to your email after you submit the evaluation form. So please look out for that particular certificate in your email. It will be an email from another email address that is not my UNESCO email address. So it might fall into your junk mail. So if you don't get it within 10 minutes after you submitted the form, please check your junk mail. Okay. Vanessa, do you and Camilla, do you have anything to add just to close our session today?
Well, I really would like to thank everyone, first of all, for stepping into this program, trying to do it, doing your best, showing up today. This is really important. This is very meaningful to us. I see that we still have 97 people here, up and counting. So it's really fantastic. So congratulations for taking these first steps, and very good luck to you in your process. We really hope that it will work out as well as we have seen in the past. And we really look forward to sharing, to you sharing with us your input, your feedback also from your experience. If you do something, let us know how it goes, and share with us. It's very important. Share with us, share with the community. Thank you very much. And thank you to all of you who took the floor today to speak or comment in the chat.
Yeah, I also would like to add that, wow, I didn't realize how these 3 hours just flied way, like in 1 minute. We had so many interesting discussions in the chat box. I think most of our participants on this webinar were more active in the chat, like more introverted participants. However, we had many interesting questions, and I'm really happy to read that most of you have already completed the MOOC course, the online course, and I hope this webinar was helpful for you to get some new ideas. Some of you decided to revise your lesson plans, and I believe it was really helpful for you. And this was our initial goal, just to help you with the MOOC course. And as Vanessa mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, it is complementary to the online course which you are taking. So thank you for your active participation, and I was really delighted to see that we had more than 100 participants in this webinar as well. So I wish you a good luck and more inspiration in this initiative in conducting your future lessons and activities and bringing the living heritage to the classroom, to the students. So hope to see you soon again.
Thank you very much, Vanessa
Thank
and
you.
Camilla, for well, I mean, gotta give you applause for talking for 3 hours, basically. Thank you very much, our expert. Thank you very much, our teacher participants, our educators from across the Asia Pacific region, and for all the kind words you have said and put in the chat box right now as well. Like, is such a music to our ears to know that what we're doing is of some use to you. And so for participants in China, we are so sorry that we're using Google service. And if you are experiencing the problem with the VPN in accessing that particular Google form, please email me. I have already put my email in the chat box, and kindly email me so I know that I can send you the PDF form for you to fill the evaluation and personally send you the certificate of participation. So thank you very much. For other people, please use the Google form. And just last but not least, we all from UNESCO and ICHCAP, the International Networking Center for Intangible Cultural Heritage in Asia Pacific region under the auspices of UNESCO. Thank you heartily for your kind interest and participation in our rather very long process from taking the online course to joining our webinar here. And we look forward to see a lot of submission of the lesson plans that you have designed using the intangible heritage in your classroom. And we'll try our best to get back to you as soon as we could. So thank you very much. And hopefully you have a good weekend today. Thank you.